The Tin Man opens in 1950 when Dora Judd, armed with a winning raffle ticket, ignores the cries of her husband, who demands that she pick up the bottle of whiskey and instead chooses for herself a reproduction of Van Gogh's Sunflowers. When she gets home, she grabs a hammer and nails it in full view, pride of place, when her husband comes barreling into the room, intent on tearing the painting from the wall. She immediately stands in front of the painting, armed with her hammer, and says, "If you so much as touch this painting, I will kill you." And so starts the story. Sunflowers was painted by Van Gogh in Arles, France, in part to entice his friend Gauguin to visit him in the south of France. And for Dora, this painting was a window into a world of color and imagination. She imagines Van Gogh stepping off that train in Arles and can't help but imagine how it couldn't change him, how it couldn't help but change anyone. We find ourselves jumping ahead to 1996 and we're introduced to Dora's son, Ellis. Ellis is living a solitary life, working in a factory. He's in fact a tin man. And he's sort of lonely and mourning the loss of his mother from years ago and more recently that of his wife and his best friend. He's adopted the life that his father wanted for him, but he's barely holding it together. And in one night, in a fit of rising panic, he escapes from the factory, hops on his bike, and rides off in the snow. And not watching where he's going, he's struck by a car and shatters his wrist. Here, the first two chapters is enough information to give us two distinct covers and perhaps interpretations of the book. The UK cover features a smartly dressed man riding a bicycle away from the viewer, the reds and blues of his outfit in stark contrast to the yellow background. The biker brings to mind Ellis, our Tin Man, riding off to some remembered city in the distance. And of course, the bike crash and subsequent wrist breakage, the motivating incident of the story. But the Canadian version is this close-up of sunflowers. It's absolutely gorgeous, and it of course brings to mind Van Gogh's painting, which is referenced throughout the book. It brings to mind the south of France, an invitation to a friend, complementary colors, and the yellows bring to mind the yellow brick road of the Wizard of Oz, the Tin Man being the woodcutter looking for a heart. And I guess both interpretations work, but clearly the Canadian cover is by far the superior edition. Anyway, back to Ellis. Ellis first meets Michael when they are 12 and they quickly become fast friends, which evolves into something a little bit more when they summer together in the south of France. They toy with the idea of staying there forever, but eventually find themselves packing up their things to return home. At which point, Ellis meets Annie and subsequently marries Annie. The three of them become inseparable. Sarah Winman doesn't belabor the point. She doesn't try and label what exists between Michael and Ellis and how that changed when Annie entered the picture, a subtle change in memory of that summer. It just is what it is, and it reads very much of the current moment. You've got Stephanie Beatrice of Brooklyn Nine-Nine fame recently writing in GQ about how marrying a man doesn't make her any less queer. And then there's Janelle Monáe of Dirty Computer fame. Do yourself a favor. You haven't picked up the album. Do it. Give it a listen. It is fantastic. She recently came out as pansexual, which gave me pause, and I had to actually look up what is the difference between bisexual and pansexual. Now, bisexual is an attraction, obviously, to both men and women, but presupposes that there are only two genders. Whereas pansexual works under the premise that there are more than two genders and includes transgender and genderqueer. But Janelle Monáe recently admitted to dating Valkyrie Tessa Thompson, but still wanted to make clear that she identifies as pansexual, understanding the complications and struggles that bisexuals and pansexuals have traditionally faced. With Stephanie marrying a man, she could simply pass as straight and avoid the uncomfortable and sometimes dangerous conversation of coming out to friends, family, and community. And even worse, being dismissed as a has-been or a lug, lesbian until graduation. For Janelle, she could just simply identify as gay without disrupting the status quo. Pansexuals and bisexuals create a sense of distrust with these people that can move in and out of spaces. But anyway, Sarah Winman is not writing some bisexual manifesto here. It is just a little rabbit hole that I ended up going down. What it is at a slight 200 pages is the perfect little read. The book is drenched in melancholia. There is a bittersweet feeling throughout and this lingering sense of loss. Now, I'm a natural worrier, but I'm lucky to be gifted with a sense of optimism that keeps me from all-out depression. I'm lucky that emotionally I tend to stay in the middle path, avoiding emotional peaks and valleys, which means I love me some middle-of-the-road melancholia. Now you could say I lack emotional commitment, that I won't commit to full-scale depression, but I do love me a little bit of that bittersweet. And Sarah Winman nails this melancholic tone throughout the entire book, which is one hell of an achievement. It's all wistful memory, faded photographs, and secret journals of a time long past, and it evokes this feeling in me hard, this feeling that I often get that I recently learned the word for, which is canopsia, the eerie and forlorn atmosphere of a place once bustling with activity, now abandoned and empty. And I get that often at night, looking down the street under the yellow streetlights. Now, recently our city has gone to the far more energy efficient LED, which emits a harsh white light and ruins the mood entirely. Back in the day, under those yellowed lights, it doesn't invoke an eerie feeling of a pre-zombie outbreak, but more like the asphalt would be a perfectly fine place to lie down, take a nap, not out of sadness or hopelessness, but a slight feeling of melancholia, and knowing full well that with a new day, it'll be active and bustling with energy. So you could say that Sarah Winman's Tin Man makes you want to lie down in the middle of the street, which I suspect isn't going to make future edition jacket copy, but there it is. And I have to say, it is a lovely read. Wow, I am out of practice here. I don't know, being away for a while, it really strikes me as odd that I'm part of a community that goes online to talk about books. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love it, but 10 years ago, I never would have guessed people would videotape themselves talking about books to post online. Anyway, just struck me as weird. Our little experiment in Discord also is proving to be fun. We're halfway through our July read-along of Salman Rushdie's The Satanic Verses. You still got time to come in and join along. We're going to have a group live discussion at the end of the month. And I think I've convinced the group for August to read The Good Son by Yu Jung for August. If you haven't, you still have time to pick up the book. It's this Korean thriller in translation. So come join us. The links to the Discord, as with all the others, will be down below. Anyway, it's friggin' hot where I am. I hope you're staying cool wherever you are. And in the meantime, have a great week of reading, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.